Today on the podcast, I'm excited to have Stephanie from Wisconsin talking to me today. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Deborah.
It's so good to have you
Thank you for having me.
all the way from Wisconsin. So you're going to have to tell me, how did we get connected?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been following your platform for some time now in my single season, engaged season, and now married season. And
Wow. I love hearing that. All the different seasons.
yeah,
That is so awesome.
yeah, it really does feel like a full circle time for me.
Yeah. So how did you come across this ministry? Like, was it just a Google search or somewhere on Instagram, or what was the impetus that connected us?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that with all the different people that I'm connected to, especially where I'm originally from, which is New England. I had some friends that were tuned into your ministry and shared with me about some of the resources that you had. And pretty much from then on, I took it from there and stayed connected, whether it was through Instagram or through the podcast or
That's
through
exciting.
books and all the others. So
Well,
yeah,
here we are having a conversation. How fun is that?
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me what's on your mind, and then we can kind of dive in.
Absolutely. So my question is, how do you find community and connection in a new area when you've just moved?
Okay, so have you just moved to Wisconsin?
Yes, I am a recent transplant to Wisconsin. I'm originally from New England, as I
Wow.
mentioned before, Massachusetts to be
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
And long story short, it's kind of been a whirlwind of the past few years. But in 2022, I took the big leap and moved literally 2 weeks after getting engaged to my now husband
Yeah.
and started a new journey in southeastern Wisconsin and have been here ever since. We got married
Wow.
back home in Massachusetts, where I'm from, and then circled back here to Wisconsin, where I've been ever since.
Okay, so it's quite a transplant from the East Coast to the Midwest. It's funny, I did a similar journey from Pennsylvania to the Chicagoland area for a season of life, 3 years to be exact. And it's hard. I think the hardest part is leaving everything that's familiar. First of all, is your husband from that area?
He is not. He was planted here before I moved here, which is what drew me here. However, he is actually from South Africa. He's
Wow.
originally from Swaziland, but Southern Africa, I should say.
So you guys have a lot of changes and transitions in this season of life. So here's the thing. I think this is really good. First of all, the fact that you are a newlywed, right? How long have you been married?
Just under a year. We got
Okay.
married last July. So,
So the fact that you are a newlywed and you have basically combined your lives and then transplanted into a new place, new for you, new for him. I actually think that is so beneficial to do if you can. Obviously, not everybody can do that, but I think the beneficial part about this, and I can speak from experience, when John and I got married, we left everything and everyone we know and started in a brand new city. And so the truth is, the only person you have to rely on is your spouse, right? And and I'll tell you, becoming one becomes a whole lot more necessary when there's no family and friends close by, when you have to start over a new town, a new community, a new church, a new apartment or house, new jobs. It's like everything is new and you're doing it together. And so I think that can be so beneficial for a newly married couple to truly have to leave and cleave. Like you have to cling to one another in this season and rely on one another in this season. And I think it can be such an intimate season of growth for your relationship if you'll lean in and learn and truly depend on each other. I look back at those first 3 years of marriage when John and I were completely alone, separate from family and friends, brand new church, brand new jobs, brand new city. We had to like figure it out on our own, but we grew so much together in those 3 years as a family unit. It was no longer his world, my world. It was our world. So that was incredible. And my first piece of advice would be to challenge you to lean into that and take advantage of that, because you guys have this special opportunity to build your relationship in this season. But then the second part to that, which kind of brings us to your question, it's community. Because while I do believe that this is a really important season for you and your husband, I also think that it's not healthy for any of us to live in total isolation, even with just our spouse. And I don't think God calls us to live in total isolation. But here's what I've learned in my many years of moving. Community never just happens. I wish that someone would knock on my door and bring me a plate of cookies and say, "Welcome to the neighborhood," and then we would become best friends. But that has never once happened in all the different moves that we've had ever. And in fact, the only pattern that I have identified in building community is we having to be extremely proactive. In a weird way, it's like dating all over again, because you have to take initiative and talk to people, get phone numbers. Like I literally remember walking into a brand new church, going up to this random couple that I spotted at the end of church that looked like they were about our age, walking over to them, starting up a conversation, asking for their names. "Hey, we'd love to get together sometime," exchange phone numbers. We had to be the ones to be proactive. And every single time that we've moved, relationships have never just happened. It's taken us being, I want to say, almost aggressive. I don't want to use the word aggressive, but like assertively proactive, because otherwise it doesn't happen. And specifically in different parts of the country, I think it's even harder. So what has been your experience so far in the past few months as newlyweds living in this new town? Tell me a little bit of the status of community to date.
Yeah, absolutely. So, good thing is, my husband had been in Wisconsin for a little while before I moved here. So, for example, he already had a church home that I was able to connect with, even while we were dating and engaged, and then once we got married. So we definitely have, it's a small church. So we have, some community there, which is really awesome. He's got his chosen family in Wisconsin too. That is kind of a bonus for me, which is lovely. But I will admit, it has been a bit challenging to go beyond that. I participated in the leadership program last year and was able to make a few connections there. But I found that a lot of people kind of already have their home base
Yeah,
and are, a little bit, it's a little bit harder to get connected and kind of, mitigate those small groups that people already have built.
right. Yeah, and so in certain communities, and I would say, maybe smaller towns as well, there's less transplants, people coming in and out and in and out. And so oftentimes relationships are established, roots run deep, right, for many people. And this is where being proactive is really important, because just because they seem like they don't need additional relationships in their life doesn't mean that that's true. It doesn't mean that you can't add something to their life. It doesn't mean that God doesn't have something for you in that connection and that new relationship. So this is where being proactive is important, and not just listening to the voices in your head of, "Well, they probably don't need another friend. They're probably busy. They probably have enough social life going on and they don't need an additional thing to add to their calendar." Because those narratives that you tell yourself aren't necessarily aligned with truth. And so this is where it's important, first of all, to assess what you need in this season. So not just like socializing for the sake of socializing. What do you actually need in this season? Do you feel like you could use a few good close friends? Do you feel like you need a group of people just to hang out with and go do stuff with, go to the movies, have dinners? Do you feel like you need a mentor in this season? What do you feel like at this point, if I were to ask you, is the main thing that you feel like you personally need?
Yeah. I love that question, and it's something that I've been thinking about for a little bit now. So I would say it's two things, because I do have a really great support system in general. Like I definitely still have, deep connections with, my friends and family from New England and beyond. So I definitely still feel like I'm grounded in that. But it would really be nice to have a few close people that I can count on for day-to-day things in Wisconsin and be able to spend time with just for fun, but also just having that camaraderie and support in
Yeah,
this new season of life.
a few close friends who are close by.
Right.
I think that's the key. Many of us have close friends that are not close by, and that's important and valuable too, those lifelong friends. But I think it's really valuable to have a few close friends that are close by. So one thing that I've talked about in several of my books is the idea of drawing a social map, kind of like a target, like three circles, where the closest group, the middle circle, is those few close friends. The second circle are your friends that maybe aren't so close, people that you see, that you interact with, that cross paths with regularly, whether it's at church, maybe you hang out with in groups. The third group is acquaintances, people that are a little bit more distant that maybe you just interact with by default. You happen to see them at work every now and again, or in the church lobby every now and again. And maybe cross paths at a party because someone invited both of you, so there's three levels. And at this season, what you're kind of doing is you're assessing the three levels of friendship in your life. The people that you are meeting are going to go into one of those three levels. And for now, you're probably not going to have anyone in level one because you haven't built those type of relationships quite yet. But you might have people in level two, and you might have people in level three, and most likely people will be added to those as you live your life and meet people. And I think the important part is praying over and thinking over who you should invite into circle one. And I say praying because I think we oftentimes fail to pray over our friends. But do you know that Jesus spent an entire night praying before he chose his disciples? He's like, I got to be intentional about this, right? I'm going to pray and seek the Father before I invite people into my closest circle. So maybe pray about it too, because sometimes I think the reason why prayer is important is because sometimes the people we think we're not going to jive with might actually be the biggest blessings in disguise, because God knows that there's something that they have or something we have that they need. There's something there in that relationship that's going to edify and encourage me. So pray about it and think about it. You know yourself and what type of person might be a good match for you. This is why I said it's kind of like dating all over again, because it's like I thought I was done with this once I got married, but no. Like you still have to assess the type of relationships that match your life from the type of relationships that don't. And I don't think you can just choose any Christian to come into your inner circle and be your best friend and be happy ever after. That's not how it works, because personality differences, compatibility, hobbies and interests. But I think the best way is to kind of analyze your circle two and circle three and pray over, okay, who do I want to be intentional about? And when you identify somebody, you start being intentional and proactive. You ask them to hang out. Ask them for, hey, let's go chat. I would love to get to know you a little bit better. I'm looking to make some friends and you just seem like a great person. We'd love to hang out. Or if it's a couple, hey, we'd love to go on a double date and get to know you a little bit better. Hey, we'd love to have you over for dinner or lunch. And so it's going to take you planning and preparing and praying and then being proactive. And I did not mean to use all those P words in a row, but it works. Being proactive about, okay, who am I going to invite into my life and who am I going to invest in? And then actually doing it. So when I say that to you, is there anyone that comes to mind yet in circle 2 or circle 3, or not quite yet?
Still need to spend some time thinking about it, but um, I do think there is some opportunity within our church, for sure.
And sometimes it's a matter of time until people enter circle 2 and 3, right? Sometimes it's a matter of time and investing in broad things, like you said, attending church, attending these groups, because unless your best friend is going to be the UPS guy or the Amazon delivery guy, there's a good chance that they're not going to be coming right up to your door, right, at some point in the future. So you have to go out there and make it happen. Community is something that you have to invest in. When I look back over our years, in all the different places we've lived, one of the best things that we have done for our community is starting a Bible study at our home. We would just invite peripheral people that we didn't know that well, from our church, from our community. And we would always host a gathering at our house. We'd be the one to host it. It's a little bit more work, but it's the intentionality that helps you build community. So we would always host something where people would come to our house. John and I would lead some sort of a study, usually we just went through a book of the Bible, chapter by chapter, kept it simple, talked through it, got to know each other. Everyone would bring a snack. We would hang out. And honestly, I look back at those seasons, whether it was in the Midwest, whether it was in Florida, whether it was in Pennsylvania, Illinois, all the different places that we've lived, and some of what I would consider lifelong friends have been built out of those gatherings in our home. People that honestly, some of them I would have never thought I'll be best friends with that person. Like sometimes you can't even predict that you'll connect with certain people. But I tell you, it always took being proactive. It never on its own happened. And I would say to those people out there who have had community happen by itself, you're very lucky because that is not the norm. So what are you thinking is your next step, Stephanie?
Yeah, there's a few things that come to mind for me in terms of next steps. I think one is being more open. I do think some of it is mindset and how I've framed the idea of bridging those gaps or making connections and not worrying so much about the outcome, but rather just putting the effort forward.
Yeah.
So changing my mindset is one. Um, and another is just leaning in more to when opportunities do arise, because there have been opportunities that have come up where I haven't exactly taken them up. So
Yeah.
that's definitely another thing that I can do. And then thirdly is be ready. I think being present with people, and preparing my own heart to be ready to receive and to give, in this season, I think is really important too, so that I can be the best friend or the best supporter, the best connection possible.
Yeah, I love that. And I do think so much of this, of what keeps us from friendships, what keeps us from going up and talking to somebody new, what keeps us from accepting an invitation, what keeps us from making an invitation is so much of what's going on behind the scenes in our own mind and heart, our own insecurities, our own narratives, our own thoughts and beliefs that may or may not even be true. Whether it's beliefs about that person, I don't know if they'll be a good match for me. I don't know if I can handle their personality. I don't know if this, I don't know if that, whether it's thoughts about ourselves. I don't know if they will like me. They might have enough friends already. I don't think they need another relationship in their life. I don't want to bog them down. I don't want to make them feel obligated to go hang out with me. Whether it's our own internal insecurities or our own internal criticisms of others, so often that's what keeps us from taking those next steps and being proactive. So I really do think, like you said, your mindset is going to be such an important place to start, followed by, okay, how can I take initiative? What can I do? What are my next steps to be proactive? And then thirdly, am I ready to receive it when it comes along? And someone's like, hey, you want to go out for coffee? I'm like, you know what? Yes, I do want to go out for coffee. Let's do it. And I'll be praying for you that God would reveal people in this season as you're praying over, that they would come out of the woodwork. You know, God's people are all around. It's just a matter of having our eyes open to seeing them, and realizing that this is important to God, and it's also important for you, and trusting that this is going to be the season that you make some really good connections and that you can encourage and edify one another. Congratulations again to you and your husband in this new season of life. And I just pray that it would be a really rich season for the two of you, but also for all the people that God's going to weave into your life and into your story.
Amen. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you for sharing. It was good to talk to you.
Likewise.
Take care.
You too.
Sure.
You too.